Covering a part of North Carolina's past and trying to heal from it. This week marks the 126th anniversary of the Wilmington Massacre, a dark point in our state's history when fear, violence, and intimidation was used to overtake an election. The event is known as the height of white supremacy in North Carolina, and it led to the onset of the Jim Crow era of segregation. In the days following the election of 1898, prominent white citizens overthrew the legally elected biracial government of the city. Soon, a mob of armed white men marched to a local African-American newspaper and set it on fire. They then took to the streets, and as many as 60 black Americans were killed. But in truth, the real number is not known. It is the only coup d'etat in U.S. history. Details of the event were really little known until recently. If you go and visit Wilmington today, you're going to find the 1898 Memorial Park. It was dedicated in November of 2008. The park holds a monument consisting of 16-foot paddles. It stands in the main thoroughfare as you enter Wilmington's downtown. The paddles are said to symbolize the role of water in the spiritual belief system of people from the African continent. City leaders call it a place for contemplation and a symbol of Wilmington's commitment to an inclusive society. Over the weekend, a wreath-laying ceremony was held to mark the anniversary. One of the speakers came to learn. She is one of the great-granddaughters of one of the 1898 descendants.
This man, he was mowed down by a machine gun and he fell here, and then they have a circle because I show my class. And then when I found out I'm talking about my great-grandfather, it took me, I just was devastated. I just didn't know.
Yeah, you can see the impacts of that massacre. They're still being felt today. And now some special citizens want to take it further. A new museum will open up across the street from that memorial. Lee Carter had a vision to build the museum to educate and help the community understand the history that belongs to us all. She solicited the help of William Buster, the former CEO of the New Hanover Community Endowment. Buster says his mission is to create a museum that displays Wilmington's history before 1898, when it was the largest city in the state and African Americans held prominent positions just a few years after the end of slavery.
My story of learning about it is a pretty common one, in that I was born and raised in Wilmington and spent a large chunk of my adulthood here and still didn't learn about it until well into my adulthood.
I want to tell the story about enslaved people who were viewed as less than human in less than a generation, being able to be a part of the largest city in the state at the time, wealthy, doctors, lawyers, in less than 25 years. These people did this, and so that is the story, I think, of Wilmington.
Yeah, Carter and Buster say the multi-million-dollar project is still in the early planning stages. The goal is to have the museum complete within the next 4 years. In the meantime, happening tonight, a new PBS documentary will dive deeper into the history of that deadly coup in Wilmington. The film features commentary of descendants who describe their ancestors' connection to the coup and its enduring legacy in their lives. The directors of the film didn't know much about this event before starting, but through their research, they realized this is a story that needs to be shared with more and more people. A special screening was recently held in Wilmington ahead of tonight's premiere, and in attendance were several descendants of those involved in that awful day. Kieran Hale didn't know much about his family's history.
It was when I tried to look into this part of my background that I realized I couldn't find information on this background that my own family felt hesitant to talk about, so I really had to chase down stories.
Hale is the great-great-grandson of Alex Manley, the owner and editor of Wilmington's black newspaper, The Daily Record, at the time of the 1898 massacre.
Essentially used as a scapegoat, was blamed, was used as justification for the violence that happened in 1898.
Manley was chased out of town during the coup, but many others didn't get that opportunity. In 1898, Wilmington was the largest city in the state, and black people controlled the government. On November 10th, white supremacists took over the city, burned down Manley's newspaper, The Daily Record, and killed countless black people. It was the only successful coup d'etat in American history. It's a story that directors Brad Lichtenstein and Yoruba Richin wanted to share to a wider audience.
Part of the things that I do as a filmmaker and that I love to do is uncovering history and telling a story, shining light on history and how it impacts, where we are today.
Together, they created a documentary with PBS, screening the film in North Carolina for the first time at Thalian Hall. Brad Lichtenstein says the inclusion of descendants, both from the victims and perpetrators, helps put the event in perspective for viewers.
The inclusion of descendants helps us understand how present this history is, that we're really talking about, your ancestors, my ancestors, just 3 or 4 generations ago. It's really not that long.
It's a project Hale said he was happy to be a part of, and he hopes it reaches a broader audience.
I have a lot of feelings about it, and it has been very personally significant. We should know that it happened. We should talk about it, and it should be known.
So mistakes in the past are not repeated in the future. American Coup, Wilmington 1898 premieres tonight on PBS at 9 p.m. And if you miss it, you will be able to stream it on their website. Just go to pbs.org. Well, it's about to get chilly out there, and you might need a big coat, plus the umbrella this week. Rachel has your full forecast coming up next. There's also more news to come tonight.